You have a couple of other items, okay? Now, if those are part of the items in your passenger baggage, the question is, will they be taxable? Remember, we said you are saying these items are for your personal use. You are going to use the TV in your own house. The new mobile phone you have brought is for your personal use, or perhaps is for your loved one. Now, when you arrive at Entebbe, will you be subject to tax? The first point is that those goods altogether, the brand new items, should not exceed the value of United States dollars 500. Okay? Altogether. The second rule that must be met is that the said items must not be packaged for commercial purposes. They are not for sale. The third aspect is that the said goods must not be for distribution to other people. Okay? So in other words, they must be for your personal use. So at what point do they become exempt? Is when it meets the criteria I have just mentioned, that one, altogether the brand new items in your personal baggage should not exceed the value of $500. Number two, they are not for sale. Number three, they are not for distribution to other people. And of course, the last one is that the quantity should be within the allowable quantities as the proper officer may determine. Now, at what point do they become dutiable? If all the new items in your company do exceed the value of $500, okay, then it becomes dutiable. If the items in your personal baggage is for distribution to other people, say I have brought 10 mobile phones, one for my uncle, one for my auntie, one for my wife, those items will definitely pay a tax when they arrive into Uganda. Are those items for commercial purposes? Okay, if you have brought, say I have a smaller shop and...
So we are back like we never left. Apologies for that little glitch. Nonetheless, the conversation continues. You are still live on the Live Tax Lounge, and we are having this amazing conversation with Jim Kagolo and Rhoda Basemera from Domestic Taxes and Customs, respectively. Now, it was at that point where we had tackled the issue of double taxation, but Jim was also telling us about the options that you could consider when you are making a payment. He had gone into the RTGSs, all the banking options that you could think of. But maybe I'm going to prompt him to have another crack at the payment platform options. Then thereafter, we are going to have a deeper dive on the issue of double taxation agreements to appreciate the countries that Uganda actually has these arrangements with, so that you get to know whether the country where you are currently residing or hustling is among them. Jim, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Kim. If you're abroad and you have an obligation to pay taxes in Uganda, you do not have to buy an air ticket to come back and fulfill your tax obligation. We have many payment options that any person can utilize in any location of the world. You can go to a bank, use your bank, you can do an RTGS, you can do an EFT, you can do use a Visa, a MasterCard, and for those that are here locally, you can even use mobile money. So we are trying to make sure that paying tax is not a pain. You're doing it at your own convenience, whether you're taking a cup of tea, you're in bed. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Please speak to the double taxation agreement. You hinted on it earlier, but Ugandans living abroad would like to know the countries that Uganda already has relationships with, so that they are made aware of whether they are in the right countries for tax purposes.
Okay. Double taxation agreements, they are basically agreements that signed between two or more countries to reduce double taxation. The double taxation may not to go away completely, but they help in eliminating or reducing. But they do not in any way mean that a person is exempted from tax. It is just a tool that is used to reduce double taxation.
True.
In Africa, Uganda has double taxation agreements with the two countries. That is South Africa and Zambia. In total, we have 9.
South
we have
Africa and Zambia.
and Zambia. Then we have, with other countries, we have India, we have Italy, we have Mauritius, we have Norway, we have Denmark, and I think I've mentioned them. Okay, let me repeat.
You've talked about
we
India.
have Denmark,
Okay.
we have India, we have Italy, we have Mauritius, Netherlands, Norway, and the United Kingdom.
USA,
No, we do not have one.
Canada,
No,
Germany.
no.
Okay.
So how these double taxations work, the double taxation agreement, like I said, they help to reduce, to eliminate double tax, or even help to reduce on the rate of tax that is applicable. Depending on the nature of income, if you are earning interest, you're earning a dividend, you're earning business income, it will depend on a particular double taxation agreement. But most, the rate for non-residents is actually reduced to 10 instead of the 15. But we'll find that depending on which type of income, like for UK, the rate actually remains on 15 on most of the incomes. So you have to make sure you're particular to the country and the DTA.
Thank you so much for making mention of those countries. I'm sure it's going to help our friends with their tax planning. You know, what you know is, they say knowledge is power, really. And indeed, that's what we believe in. That's why we try as much as possible to do this massive tax education. And today we are coming virtually to inform our friends about these things, so that the more you know, the better equipped you are to enjoy this country and all the benefits that it has. Shortly, we are going to get into the benefits, because it's important that people get to know about the incentives that are within Uganda for them as people who are living in the diaspora, because there are plenty and they need to be able to take advantage of them. But just before we do, there is a question that I would like to run by the both of you, by the way. This is a two-in-one. It's applicable to domestic taxes, it's applicable to customs. The issue of donations. There are many Ugandans who are abroad, and they are sending things to maybe NGOs back home or churches, and we get into situations where the NGO is saying, for me, this was a donation, like someone sent 50,000 USD by way of a donation to, you know, an entity here in Uganda, or someone sent a consignment, a truckload of goods worth, you know, hundreds of thousands of US dollars, and it's a donation to an NGO. What does the picture look like? First, we are going to appreciate the customs, the point of entry. Then we are also going to appreciate the perspective of domestic taxes. Let's look at donations and diaspora in Uganda.
Thank you so much, Akim. When it comes to customs, actually donations are not given exemption. They are not exceptional to when it comes to payment of taxes, of the customs taxes. The exemptions that come in apply only to donor agencies that have multilateral agreements with Uganda. So the donor should be, if the donor is, say, maybe UN, maybe World Food Program, okay? Those agencies that have those multilateral agreements that they have already gotten into with Uganda, those ones get exempted. But for an individual sending goods from wherever you are, or a church, or whichever other kind of group, for as long as you're not a donor agency and you don't have that agreement with Uganda, your goods that you send will only benefit the person receiving them, that they didn't have to pay for them at that point of the cost value. But we will establish the value of these goods based on these other methods of valuation, and look at how much those same goods other people are paying taxes for them, what value we charge or we base on while we are taxing other importers, and we'll use those values and charge your taxes. So there's no exemption.
Is it safe? Is it plausible for me to assert that if you're living in the diaspora or if you're sourcing for a donation
Yeah.
from the diaspora, it is incumbent on the donor to also factor in the element of tax
Thank you so much.
before that commodity is actually sent home, because otherwise you're giving this person a donation, but you're also extending a tax burden to them.
Very true. You should be able to plan for taxes as you're planning and raising all these donations. So you plan for the tax element for those goods.
Thank you so much. So this is a word of encouragement. Ebyakabi mu biweereze, Ugandans need these things, but as you're sending the things either by ship or by plane, kindly make sure that the people that you're sending the donations to are actually not left with the burden of accessing these items, because if they're not able to pay the tax that is applicable to the donation, there's a strong chance they might not be able to access this well-intended donation. I thought we needed to make that as clear as light and darkness. Now, Jim, the perspective of domestic taxes regarding donations. Chirichitia.
Okay, I will look at it in two ways. In the hands of the giver and in the hands of
The givee
the receiver.
or receiver.
Okay? In the hands of the receiver. Because in the hands of the receiver, it is income. In the hands of the giver, you would say it is an expense. The question here would be, in the hands of the giver, is it an allowable deduction? In the hands of the receiver, is it an exempt income? So let me start with the receiver.
Okay.
You're in America, you've donated to an NGO. You've had the customs bit. Okay, now we come to income tax. For income tax, he brought in the aspect of an NGO. Depending on the nature of NGOs, ordinarily, they should be having tax exemptions. So if an NGO has a tax exemption for income tax, so even the donation, it will be exempt.
By extension.
By extension, it will be exempt. All the income will be exempt if the person applied and has a certificate for an exemption. But now let's just assume the person does not have an income tax exemption and the person has received a donation. That donation will definitely be taxable in the hands of the receiver. It is income to you.
In other words, you should be able to give to Caesar what belongs to
What
Caesar
belongs to Caesar
from that donation.
from that donation.
Very
Because
important.
it is income earned.
Thank you. Before we took that break, you were also telling people about the touch point or the connections that they can go through should they want to engage with URA as people living in the diaspora. URA has provisions in place. If you could take us through those again, because there's a chance that some people didn't pick up on those.
Okay, for those in case a person has any challenge or has an inquiry to make, we have our toll-free lines. That is the 0800-217-000. We also have 0800-117-000. We also have a WhatsApp number where a person can drop in a WhatsApp message on 77214 code 0, or a person can opt to send an email on services@ura.go.ug, and we promise we shall give real-time feedback.
The person can also slide into the URAX DM and they can get served even on that platform. We are highly responsive, or even touch point.
Even touch point.
The one that you talked about, it was Rhoda. She talked about the touch point a little earlier. If you're living abroad and you want to, have this conversation with URA, you can consider any one of those platforms, or you could go to www.ura.go.ug. Then you select the touch point, and you have your inquiry responded to in real time with full visibility. Because the moment you make that inquiry, it becomes available not to just the officer that is responsible, but the entire value chain within the organization. So you can always be assured of getting a response if you move in that direction. Now, that brings me to another question that I would like to run by my brother Jim. I'm living abroad and maybe there are these obligations that I must fulfill. because of my residence rules and how applicable they are to me and my country, Uganda. And for some reason, I've not been able to fulfill those obligations. You are a Kwalaokachi. There are things that URA can do to a person like me.
Okay. One of the principles of taxation is fairness. Okay. Fairness meaning the same law should apply equally to all people, irrespective of whether I am a resident, a non-resident, in diaspora or in Uganda. So if you have an obligation to meet and you fail on those obligations, URA will definitely, basing on the law that is enacted by as an act of parliament, will impose the applicable penalties as well as interest. In case you have to pay and you not pay on time, there will be interest depending on which type of income, rather which type of tax that you have to pay. But for income tax, it is withholding tax, it is basically 2% per month, not compounded. For the VAT, it is for the local, that is 2% per month compounded. So even when you're in diaspora and not pay on time, there will be interest. There are other obligations like filing the tax returns. Still, we have timelines within which we should file a return. The moment you do not meet those timelines, definitely you will be liable to those penalties. Of course, you have other penalties that extend to registration for taxes. In case you're eligible to register for taxes, but you do not register, still there will be penalties. So whether you are in diaspora or not, you will be liable to face the same penalties and interest like any other person.
It's important that you made that very clear, and that brings me to perhaps the penultimate question that I would like to run by you. We've talked about the penalty, but we've also talked about the situation where you have made a provision for a desk, particularly to enable our friends who are in the diaspora to be able to fulfill their tax obligations. Now, is URA particularly putting some measures in place to support Ugandans in the diaspora to be able to make a contribution? Because these things of revenue mobilization, we are kukwana.
Yeah.
Are we doing some things to make sure that those friends of ours who are in Germany, USA, UK, Mozambique, any country, and they're there and they're putting in the work and they're getting some income and they have the willingness to give something back to their home country? Are we doing some things particularly to ensure that they actually are motivated to bring that money home?
Okay. One of the things we do is, before you even get to know the obligations, it starts with the knowledge. And that is exactly what we are doing now.
True.
We are enlightening our friends in the diaspora about their obligations. So we are assisting them by giving them prior information, such that when that time comes, they do not fall prey. They are obliged to their tax obligations. Also, I talked about our tax returns being online. Okay, we are making it much easier for everyone that after knowing the tax obligations, through these sessions that we are conducting to let them know of their obligations, we are giving them platforms, online platforms, that you do not have to be in Uganda to file a return. Okay, as long as you have internet, just log on the www.ura.go.ug, URA website, you have your TIN, you have your password. Log into your account, file a return, irrespective of where you are. So all these are brought in to make sure that we help all people who are paying taxes, irrespective of the geographical location, to make sure it does not become a burden on them to comply. And I also talked about the payment options, that on top of being able to file from wherever you are, you can still pay
from wherever
you are. So we are making it very easy for them. And also, if you're to go to our web portal, there is a lot of educational information which is categorized per sector, depending on what you want to know. So in case any of the information that you may need to know is not covered through these sessions, you can still go on our web portal and look out for that brochure that will guide you such that you fulfill your obligations.
Thank you so much for making that quite clear. Now I'm going to have to look into the camera for this particular one, because when we're together, it's where it's, you know, the most beautiful. There is this thinking that Uganda only has incentive for foreigners. I would like us to go into this conversation where we get to, you know, debunk that myth, and we put it aside, and we get to appreciate the opportunities that are up for grabs. Now, why is it important that we have this conversation, particularly with our friends who are in the diaspora? These are Ugandans who are handling some foreign currency, and you're probably thinking, what can I take back home? The Baganda say, atambulako. There's a phrase that speaks to a person who visits, being the person who gets to appreciate the world from a bigger spectrum, and then they get to bring some ideas back home. I'm forgetting the local iteration, like word for word, but that's the context. Now, if you're abroad and you've seen opportunities that you would like to bring back home by way of investing, this is purpose to encourage you to do exactly that. But first, you need to tap into the knowledge for the opportunities that are prevalent in the country, so that you're able to come and grab on these. Instead of using that money to build countries that are already overbuilt, you can actually bring that, you know, hard-earned money back home, and you're able to enjoy it from the vantage point of building your own. Now, that brings me to the issue of incentives or opportunities that are available in Uganda for a Ugandan who is living in the diaspora. What are these? We are going to go Kasavu Kanyama. We shall start with my sister Rhoda. You talk about the opportunities that are within the Ugandan customs regime for our friends who are in the diaspora. Then after that, we shall work our way to Jim, and he will give us the domestic taxes angle. And I think we shall call it a wrap. Okay, Rhoda, over to you.
Thank you so much, Kim and our viewers. First of all, as a first incentive is to encourage residents to return home. Mkome weka. And as one of the incentives is come back with all your goods. We exempt them. It's tax exempt. So if you are a returning resident and want to get back to Uganda, if you have been owning your car, then URA is saying come with your car. As long as it's within the 15-year cap, please bring your car and you will be exempt from taxes. You take it free of charge on condition that you are above 18 and you have owned this car for more than 1 year, that you have driven it for more than 1 year in the country where you were driving it. So you should have registered this car and driven it for more than 1 year for you to benefit. The only thing that you will be paying here is the registration fee, which is about 1.5 million, and maybe your number plate fee. And when you ever decide...
These are the red plate cars?
Yes, the red plate cards that you see for the returning residents, like return and then you're exempted. It's until when you ever decide to sell it that the person who buys it will have to pay the taxes at that point. But for you who is returning, bring your car. Not that you're bringing another for your wife and your child and we will exempt it. No, we exempt one per person, unless you're also coming back with them and each of them can have these cars, their cars. They should have registered them. I have driven them for more than 1 year.
I have a Bugatti for my wife, and a Nissan for my little boy.
Your little boy should be above 18.
He's 19.
Okay, 19 is okay. And the car, they should have registered this car in that country and driven it for more than a year. Okay. Then we'll exempt. Then all the goods that you come back with, for as long as you import them within a period of a year from when you returned. Sometimes you return and then you ship in your goods. All your goods will be exempted for as long as they are used goods. So we consider them personal effects.
Context is everything, you know.
Yeah.
Let's say I've been having this house in Tokyo.
Yes.
And I have all the things that you would need in a house.
Yeah.
in Tokyo,
Yes.
and I want to come and resettle back home in Uganda.
Yes.
Nkomyeo ku yen, I think, in
Yeah.
Japan. I can literally carry everything
Just pack your house
that
and
is
bring
in that
it.
house,
Yes.
and I come with it back home.
Tax free. Yes, you will. For as long as they are used goods, because you've been using them, then they are used goods. But if they become new and we find new items, the new ones are the ones that pay taxes. But everything in your house. So that is one of the ways to encourage the people to come back home. Now we are done, you've come back home.
Get your house, put it on a plane, come back home.
Including your car, bring it.
Nice.
Come back with everything. We will not tax you. So that is with the returning residents. Everything will be tax free. And then the other thing now that comes into play, now that you've come home, we have opportunities where we have URA has decided to exempt taxes on imports if you choose to invest in those particular industries. Kim, we are saying that the different sectors where Uganda has decided and is saying, in this sector, we are doing good as a country.
Like which
in
one?
agriculture, we are saying in agriculture, this is our backbone as a country. So the country is saying fertilizers, the import duty has been removed on fertilizers, on sprayers, NAP sprayers. You have on the machinery that you're using in agriculture, on the fertilizer mixers, the cars that you're using to plow. The taxes have been removed on the seeds that you need to import and plant in agriculture.
The message in there is mulime paka kuwulira buki?
Kuwulira bubi. And then they're saying the breeds, if you want to go out there and you're like, I want to improve my breed and bring in the South Africa, the whichever kind of breeds that you need to bring in, there's exemption that has been given. So there are several exemptions in that sector of
Like
agriculture.
I want to bring this goat from the Netherlands.
Yes.
I bring it in tax free.
You bring it in tax free.
I don't have to smuggle a goat. From
No,
Kenya.
don't smuggle goats. Don't smuggle goats. You bring in these things tax free. Ladies and gentlemen, there are other sectors. Now we move on to the manufacturing sector. Then we are saying in the manufacturing sector, there are exemptions that the URA is giving for all raw materials. If you want to be a manufacturer, you've registered, there's a facility where you manufacture under bond.
Okay.
In short, for all the raw materials that you bring, you register. Go register with WUMA and pay the necessary amount and fee that is required for you to be registered as an investor in the country or manufacturer. And then once you're done with that, all the raw materials that you'll bring in for for purposes of producing goods that are meant for export will be tax-free. So those are facilities that we put in place. We have, you go into the tourism facility, there are opportunities in there. They are saying if you want to deal in tourism, they are saying register yourself with the tourism board. And then once you are a registered person, then you can build your hotel. Now that you've finished building it, bring in everything you need in this hotel. Of course, these exemptions are all listed in the 5th schedule of the East African Customs Management Act. Now, in there, then they tell you, go bring in everything that is within the kitchen. Of course,
All the
schedule, kitchenware for the hotel, as long as you've engraved it and then you're registered. It's engraved like with the hotel name. Bring in the cookers, the spoons, the cutlery.
Is that why at all these hotels you find the bed sheets?
Yeah, they have to be labeled.
Yes.
Yes.
The beddings.
That's a condition by customs.
It's not branding.
No, it's not about branding. It's a condition that is set by customs. And the reason is we know people, not everyone is actually trustworthy, that sometimes they bring in these things and the things end up on the market. Now imagine they have come in tax-free and then they end up on the market being sold. But if you're going to buy a bed sheet and you find a hotel name, will you buy it? Most likely no. So we have, we are giving exemptions and saying, bring in a tourism van and then you will not pay taxes for as long as it meets the criteria. This van has an open roof where you're able to view the animals, then it's painted in the color that is good and mixes well with the nature, that is green, and then you're looking at the brown bit of it. Such exemptions and more also exist. We have opportunities.
Not these things of bringing your GLE Mercedes.
No. I'm going to use it for tourism. No. It is the van. It is the van. We have opportunities in the construction area, in the construction, where we're removing import duties on these machines that you're bringing in, machinery that you're going to use for construction. Then we are removing on scaffoldings, the poles that you put for you to be able to build, because we are partly also protecting the environment. So for as long as you bring them from the East African community, not anywhere else. The others we will charge them, but if you're bringing them from EAC, then we will
Kenya,
exempt
Tanzania,
them. Yes, Kenya, Tanzania,
DR
Congo, then we'll exempt them if they're from the EAC. So we have several of those things. We have opportunities in the security sector. In the security sector, we are saying, come, ladies and gentlemen, bring the money that you brought from the diaspora and come and invest in this sector. These method, the detectors where you pass at checkpoints.
The Garrett.
The ones, okay, plus the handheld ones, and also the ones which are like built, the ones where you go through. Those ones, you have the CCTV cameras, all those are exempt from taxes.
Are you doing something for the events industry?
Events, more likely that is partly the events really.
Okay.
That's where you fall. With the events, if we're going to have to check and all that, that is where you fall. But
those little toilets at these events?
No, those ones are taxed. Those ones are taxed, Kim. No, we are not. We are not in that. Then we are also. We also have
that
opportunities.
You'll forgive me for the passion.
We also have opportunities in the health sector. When you bring in medical equipment, for as long as you are registered, come register your facility, build it and register it. After you have built it, at that point where you want to import in equipment, we give them tax-free. They're exempt. The equipment that you use, the dental, the clutches, the bed, the freezers, the ones you will still use to put the bodies and all that, and all these equipment, all those are exempt. So there are various, very, very many opportunities in different sectors that are given. You can go still on the website. On our website, we have the list, the document that gives all the incentives that URA is giving in customs or whichever other sectors. Thank you, Kim.
Oh, thank you so much. That was a lot. Surely people have no excuse. They need to, bring that money home, and they put it here, so that we are able to benefit from it as Ugandans, as people who are enjoying these amenities that they will have brought, but also as collectors of this tax, because Twagara said we can't be shy about that. Now, Jim, are there incentives within the domestic taxes realm that my friends in the diaspora should know about?
Okay, thank you. I'm going to discuss that in relation to the different tax types that are collected locally. That is income tax, VAT, stamp duty, local excise duty. I'll keep mixing. Let me start with the income tax. Income tax, I'll start with the carry forward losses. That we all know that once you start a business, you're not going to start earning profits there and then. There will be a grace period for you to recover. So Section 38 of the Income Tax Act allows a person to carry forward a loss, but it was capped recently to 7 years. Meaning, what Section 38 means, you only pay income tax only and only when you've made a profit. So this is an incentive that a person should not fear to come and invest back home because of fearing the tax. The tax will be there at certain point T, but it will only be on the profits made after recovering the losses. It is only capped to 7 years. After 7 years, if you spend more than 7 years and you still have a loss, you will only be allowed to carry forward 50% of that loss. But all in all, you will only be required to pay as and when you make a profit, a taxable profit, or the chargeable income for tax purposes. The other exemption we have in income tax is you have capital deductions, you have startup costs. You are starting a company, you're forming it, you're incurring costs before even the company materializes, before you even register the company with URSP. All those costs, we shall give them to you and you claim them within 4 years. So we'll be claiming 25% in 4 consecutive years to
Installments.
recover 100% of your initial costs. Then you're bringing in plant and machinery, which depreciates over time. So we are saying, yes, you're doing an industry manufacturing, but you're importing in this machinery. You've imported. At customs, you've gotten VAT deferment because you are into manufacturing. So you've not paid VAT at importation, much as the law imposes. But because you're going into manufacturing, there is no VAT paid. It is deferred at that point. And even when you come for income tax, it shall give you the capital deductions. We are telling you that this machine, all furniture, all whatever computers you use, they depreciate over time. So we shall give you that as an allowable deduction such that it reduces your chargeable income at the end of the day. Then the incentives that we have, some may really go into the tax planning. You may have to choose wisely which sector am I investing in. We have, if some are based on the sector, some are based on the capital investment. That if you invest in Uganda and the minimum amount of investment you've put in is $300,000 US, you will get a 10-year income tax exemption.
300,000 USD?
USD.
You're a Ugandan resident, not a foreigner?
Yes, you're a resident.
And you want to invest money home?
You want to invest money home. That one is even in Kampala.
Regardless the sector?
Regardless the sector. Then if you are up country, for up country, because you want to develop all the regions in Uganda, for up country, the minimum investment for you to qualify is $150,000 US. When we say up country, we are talking of outside the radius of 50 kilometers from the boundaries of Kampala. So the moment you invest up country, and the investment is $150,000 US.
Kamul is up country.
Kamul is up country. You will
Mitiana
qualify.
is up country.
Mitiana, yeah.
Interesting.
So you have to apply and get that exemption 10 years. So you have the people in the manufacturing sector, you're manufacturing footwear, you're into vocational training, all those are covered in those exemptions, depending on the amount of investments. Then also you look at if you're into manufacturing and you export 80% of what you're manufacturing, you can apply for a 10-year income tax exemption.
You're in manufacturing?
Yes.
You're exporting 80% of what you manufacture?
Of what you manufacture. You will apply and get a 10-year income tax exemption. The reasoning behind this, we want you to bring in those dollars back home. So they are giving you an income tax exemption such that what you would have paid as tax, you're actually recouping it back into the business such that it grows. Such that at one point in it, Uganda will be exporting instead of us importing. That's why you have that exemption. For you're exporting 80%. Okay? But it has to be reviewed every year. Because we may give it to you, Kim, and the next year you're like, Japan, I have the certificate, I'm exporting 10%, the 90%, katwe. So it has to be reviewed.
There are mechanisms in place.
Yes, there are mechanisms in place.
80% of what you're manufacturing
is exported. Yes. Then when we go to the VAT will have categorization in terms of taxation. You have the exempt, the zero rated, and standard. I will dwell more on the zero rated. If you deal in an item that is zero rated, like you have locally manufactured medicines, okay? They are zero rated for VAT purposes. By zero rating, you will mean you're registered, and now whatever input you incurred into the manufacture of these drugs, you can claim a refund from URI because they are zero rated.
Come again.
For zero rating, you are a taxable person, meaning you're supposed to register for VAT.
True.
But when I am selling this drug because it is locally manufactured, I am charging VAT at a rate of 0%.
Okay.
Okay. But in manufacturing this, I've incurred VAT on water, on electricity, on printing paper. Mention it. Okay, because now you have zero, the output and input. It means the tax payable at the end of the day for VAT,
An automatic credit.
a credit, which is a refund. So you can apply for this refund because you are in zero, dealing in zero rated items. So this becomes an exemption that you're not paying VAT, but at the same time, you're entitled to a refund on what you have incurred. So this, I said, depending on which sector you will invest in. Okay, because you may invest in something that is completely standard rated, the case will be different. The same applies to exports, that all Uganda's exports are made zero rated. Zero rated in the sense that you're not going to charge VAT. Okay, you're charging at 0%, literally zero. But you're allowed to claim. You're buying packaging materials, you're buying what? For these items that are going to be exported. So if you are the kind of a person I talked about, for income tax, you're exporting 80%. For income tax, you will not pay for 10 years. For VAT, you're claiming a refund.
Why don't you bring the money home?
Why don't you bring the money back home? Okay. Then we will go to a stamp duty and local excise duty. If you are constructing into a factory in the trade-free zones, okay, there is no stamp duty, there is no local excise duty on construction materials, which is basically the cement. It has local excise duty. But the moment you are putting up a factory in those gazetted areas, you will not have to pay the excise duty. So all those are incentives that are available not only to foreigners, but even to the indigenous people. Even you, Kim, you can qualify if at all you can afford to invest up country, because for it, it's a bit, the investment is a bit reduced.
Thank you so much for really sharing about those opportunities. They are many and they are here. We are at that part of the show where I'm going to give you an opportunity to make one last personal appeal, or that message that you think is very important for these people who are living abroad, not to go without getting to listen to. I'll start with you, Rhoda. Ladies first. That one thing that you would like that friend in Germany, who is a Ugandan, to know and take to heart.
Thank you so much, Kim. Dear listeners that have stuck with us and are still watching, mine is to appreciate you for the time you put in this and for paying your taxes, and to also encourage us that come back home, come invest, be in the diaspora, but look at it as a money bag. Let the money come back home. So there are various opportunities, as we've stated, and there are several others that we could not have talked about on the show, but reach out on the different materials we've talked about. The time is just small to break down all these things. Read further, invest in, reach out, do not hesitate. We're here to help you, and we're here to make sure that we build Uganda together. Thank you so much for paying your taxes.
Thank you so much, Rhoda. It was a direct appeal, and I'm sure they'll be able to take it to heart. Centers communal worker, because the opportunities are here. Tim Kagolo, that message to that friend in Japan.
Okay, whereas paying taxes is a constitutional obligation, I will start by thanking all our esteemed taxpayers, including myself, for always paying those taxes. We can't stop to thank you. And this is an appeal to all of you that let us always ensure that we fulfill our tax obligations to avoid the penalties, the unnecessary penalties and interest. And June is fast approaching. For those of you who have the financial year ending 30th June, the time is a little limited. I just appeal to you to fulfill your tax obligations, filing those provisional returns, pay your second installments, and we develop Uganda together. Bring the money back home. Yes, you may bring the money back home, not necessarily looking at taxes, but at least your brothers back home, you will be employing them in your factories. So we also benefit from you being in diaspora when we are employed. So bring that money back home. We shall be glad to receive you and take you through the tax journey.
Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you so much, Rhoda. Indeed, bring the money back home, benefit from the opportunities that have been set up via the tax regime for you to actually come here and make some significant money. Build a fortune back home, because home, East and West home is best. That's what they say. Now imagine home with better amenities, thanks in part to you. So make that money, consider it a money bag, like Rhoda said. Bring the money home, invest in it, and make a killing back home here in Uganda. That brings us to the end of the show, but please don't forget, should you want to catch a repeat of episodes like this, now you have a home for all the content that we actually do produce via URA TV. You just need to visit the URA website, go to www.ura.go.ug. You look out for the Media Center tab. In there, you will find the URA TV tab. Click on it, and you will get inside the world of all this tax education content that we've been producing for you over the years. We are doing it like Netflix, so that you never miss a show. But even more importantly, you get to watch it when you want to watch it. From all of us at URA TV to you, adios.
Hi, my name is Rachel Acheng, a customs officer here at Entebbe International Airport. Today I'm here to tell you more about prohibited goods and restricted goods. Prohibited goods are goods whose importation is not allowed into the country by a law. One of the examples is used laptops. Then we also have shisha pots and all the other products of shisha. And then we also have electric cigarettes, amongst others. So you may ask yourself, when I'm found with these items, what happens? So what we do is we shall seize the items. That basically means we are going to take them away from you, and they become items for customs. Now, guided by Section 200 of the East African Community Customs Management Act, you will be required to pay a penalty for importing prohibited goods into the country. Now, secondly, I'll take you through what restricted goods are. Restricted goods are those goods that you can import only when you have clearance from a regulatory body. What are examples of these items? If you import drugs and all kinds of medicines, we at Customs expect you to have authorization or clearance from National Drug Authority. Also, if you have drones, we expect you to have clearance or authorization from UPDF. Same as walkie-talkies. When we get you with walkie-talkies, we expect you to show us clearance that you've gotten from Uganda Police. So if you don't have this authorization, we shall go ahead and guide you on how you can actually get it. But in the meantime, before you take your goods, we shall give you a goods deposit note showing that Customs has your product or your item. Let it be a drone, let it be a walkie-talkie, or the drugs. So this, the deposit slip basically shows that we have your item. So once you have authorization, you'll come back to Customs and we can give you your items. If the item pays taxes, you'll pay taxes first, and then we shall give you back your item. In brief, this is how we handle prohibited goods and restricted goods here at Entebbe International Airport. Thank you.